This is the story of a cast iron village pump. It is well over 100 years old. I discovered it in about 1970, buried in a sandy cliff where it had been revealed during the construction of my sister's new house. I brought it home and it lay in my garden for the next 50 years. Then COVID happened. One of the things we did during lockdown was to redesign our garden, and I mentioned the pump to the bricklayer who built a retaining wall for us. He agreed that we could incorporate the pump into the design. He also suggested that we illuminate it. However, one problem with the pump was that the top cap was missing. Sue did some research on the web and discovered a site all about historic pumps called villagepumps.org. After contacting Dick Williams, who ran the site, he was able to not only identify the pump, but to provide us with drawings showing how the cap should look. That was fine, but Dick also explained that these things were just about impossible to obtain now. Undaunted, I remembered that Pete, a friend of mine in the village, was into 3D printing, and I asked him if there was any way of making a cap. He said he thought that he could do it, and several days later a blue plastic cap, which was an exact replica of the drawings, arrived. Pete had designed it, created the necessary digital drawings, and I think that this took about 16 hours of printing on the machine. Meanwhile, I had embarked on the task of wire brushing the surface of the pump before calling on Sue for assistance with anti-rust priming. Phil, our builder, had asked me to mark the position for the pump, and due to its weight, I estimate that to be in a region of 100 pounds, we decided that it would be necessary to mount it on 4 threaded bolts which were sunk into a 3-foot cube of concrete. The rods needed to be positioned extremely accurately, so I made an exact template of the pump base to locate them while they set. We also had to run a curved duct to carry the waterproof lighting cable and sink this into the concrete so that it exited where the middle of the pump would sit. By this time we had also painted the pump in its final dark green colour, appropriate to its design and age. The base flange proved to be a real problem and made it difficult to set up the pump, so we decided to remove it. Phil also made a side cut to accommodate the lighting duct. Once the base was complete, we set adjustment nuts on the rods for the pump to sit on. We then threaded the lighting cable up through the pump and manhandled the pump onto the rods. This epic task was almost entirely done by Phil. The pump was then adjusted to make it exactly vertical, and Phil created the base for the pump to sit on out of paving blocks. Once this was set, the pump was lowered down onto the paving blocks and the top bolts firmly tightened. We had decided to feature a light in the spout, and once again Pete had come to the rescue with a 3D custom built lamp holder. I had purchased a 230 to 12 volt transformer, but when I bench tested it, the lamp flashed brightly and then just pulsed. Pete had supplied the lamp with a halogen bulb, so after a bit of thought I decided to try an LED version. As the transformer I had purchased turned out to be specifically for LED bulbs, this fixed the problem. I had already added a waterproof socket next to the pump location, and this worked perfectly. The new cap could now be fitted with a couple of bolts. I covered the base of the cap with Vaseline and then seated it on clear silicone. This created a perfect weatherproof seal, but the Vaseline meant that the cap could easily be removed if the transformer, which was located inside of the pump top, ever needed replacing. A stone trough under the pump spout completed the job, and now that the plants have started growing, this looks as if it has been there for many years. So, that's the story of our unique village pump garden feature. Many thanks to everybody who was involved.